Still have a couple of minutes. Hope people may be joining.
Am I audible?
Yes, Brajesh, sir.
Thank you, Sunny.
IPv4.global from Hilco Stream Bank. Backed by Hilco Global, IPv4.global has completed thousands of transfers. Our online marketplace serves address blocks and ASNs of all sizes and regions. Transparent, experienced, reliable. IPv4.global.
You don't call your mum via a chain of other people's phones. So why would your Australian network be any different? One internet exchange service makes single-point national connectivity in the Australian market as simple as IAA. Carrier-neutral, high-performance, unmetered peering from IAA. Because your users deserve it.
In Asia, the IP address management is managed by an organization called APNIC. Then, APNIC appointed APG to run the IP address management process, especially in Indonesia.
Team Cymru delivers no-cost threat monitoring to internet service providers and hosting providers who partner with us. Nimbus Threat Monitor gives you near real-time threat detection, illuminating the compromised assets on your network and those of your clients by correlating your network flows with our world-class IP reputation data. Saving and improving lives is Team Cymru's mission, and making the internet a safer place is integral to that mission. Take advantage of our peer signal threat detection today.
All right, let's get started. And thanks to those sponsors for sponsoring the APRICOT and APNIC 53 conference. My name is Sunny Chendi, and I'll be the MC for this session. Greetings from APNIC and welcome to the Cooperation SIG at APNIC 53 virtual conference. Now, before I start, I would like to ask you all to be mindful of the code of conduct, which is just posted in the chat box and also is published on the conference website. If you want to ask a question, please type it in the chat box by starting with the word question, and I or the session moderator, Chase, will read out your question when we have an appropriate time. Or please use the raise hand function in the Zoom to join the audio queue. Please use the Zoom chat for support with other questions about the event in general or issues with Zoom or anything else not related to the presentations. If you're uncertain of anything about APRICOT 2022, APNIC 53, please visit the conference website for information. You can share a photo of you attending the conference on Twitter or Facebook or any other social media platforms using the hashtag #APRICOT 2022 and or #APNIC 53. There will be some prizes to give away to the best selfies during the conference. Also, check the program for time and info to join the daily quiz to win a prize. If you have any other questions or inquiries unanswered during this session, technical or non-technical, please email to conference@apnic.net and we will get to them offline. All right, so now let's make a start to the session. The first speaker, before I hand over to the chair of the Cooperation SIG, Joy Chan, would like to invite Brajesh Jain, a member of the NOMCOM, to give a brief update on the NOMCOM for this region. Brajesh, over to you.
Thanks, Sunny. I thank you for coordinating this short slot, and I thank COOP-SIG Chair Joy and Vikram for allowing this within their time frame. So I'm straight away going to the screen share. Is my screen visible?
Yes, Brajesh.
Thank you. Now, first of all, good afternoon to all of you. It is a pleasure for me to be at APRICOT 22 and meeting many old friends and fellow community members. First of all, you all know what is NOMCOM, but let me just take a minute for that. The nominating committee, NomCom, is an independent committee tasked with selecting key ICANN leadership positions. It is important to know that the NomCom is expected and designed to function independently from the board, the supporting organizations, and advisory committees. NomCom delegates act on behalf of interests of global internet community. NomCom delegates do not act in the interest of the group that appointed them to the NomCom. For example, I am thankful to ASOAC who have chosen me as their delegate to NomCom, but ASOAC do not provide any guidance or oversight to me for my functioning at NomCom. Basically, every year, fresh NomCom is seeded and looks for the leaders. So this year, 2022 also, NomCom is looking for leaders. Now, important thing is, why should you apply? And what are we looking for? See, basically, you can contribute to global internet policy, understand and impact the evolution of internet, enhance professional collaboration, collaborate with diverse group of industry leaders, engage in global community, like you are engaging in APNIC, you get to know the global community. What NomCom is looking for is basically persons who are critical thinking, culturally aware, knowledge of internet ecosystem, board or executive experience, relevant experience in legal, finance, government, technology, business, or non-profit sector. So what are the positions NomCom is looking for? And please note that NomCom is independent and leaders chosen by NomCom would represent a variety of cultural, geographical, professional backgrounds, and also striving for diversity and regional balance as well. So first of all, we have this year, there are 8 ICANN board members who were chosen by NomCom. As we know that ICANN board position is for 3 years. So every year, either 3 or 2 members come for selection. This year, we have got 3 members for the ICANN board of directors. For these positions, some of the existing board members are also eligible, as well as it is open for everybody who meets the criterion for the role. This year, we will be choosing 1 member for public technical identifier PTI. You are all aware of PTI board of directors. PTI, NomCom chooses 2 PTI board members, and 1 year one, and then 1 year nobody. This year choosing 1. Similarly, there are 2 regional representatives to at-large advisory committee, ALAC, Europe and North America, because this year they are restricted to Europe and North America. So Asia Pacific folks will have to wait maybe for till next year. NomCom will also be choosing 1 member of generic names supporting a GNSO council. It is also to choose member of some country code names supporting organization, CCNSO council. I will just like to add few words here. For example, CCNSO council expects NomCom to choose persons to select persons who are not directly involved into running of country code registries, directly or indirectly. They may be having as registrar and otherwise, but they should have no say in running of the CCNSO. That is one of the requirement by CCNSO. So in summary, 3 members of ICANN board, 1 PTI, 2 ALAC members, Europe and North America, 1 GNSO council, and 1 CCNSO council. Please remember, all applications must be complete. You can start the application and keep saving and keep working on that. But it should be fully complete by 11th March 2022 at 23:59. Any incomplete application after this time will not be entertained.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Brajesh.
That's all for the moment I have. Yeah. For any questions, you can go to the NOMCOM website, and offline I could be contacted till 11th March. After that, I could not be communicated any further on the role and how NOMCOM is functioning. Thank you once again for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Brajesh, for that update of NOMCOM. You may stay in the room, in this meeting room, and you can take some questions offline if anyone got any questions for you. But now it's my pleasure to invite the chairs of the Cooperation SIG, Joy Chen and Vikram Shrestha. Over to you both, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, and hello to everyone. On behalf of the Cooperation SIG, myself and my co-chair, Vikram, we want to welcome you on this session. The Cooperation Special Interest Group is really a forum to discuss about the broader internet issues. So they are like public policy and internet governance that we are interested in, and we're related to the APNIC community interest. So that involves the government, other organizations, and other communities. Our topics are very broad, and we are seeking from the outreach activity for the advice and guidance for the future activity, so that we can act as a forum to develop and clarify the APNIC community's position. And I think it's very special today that we did a very recent study that's commissioned by the APNIC and the Latin American Caribbean and published very recently under Internet Study. This study provides a new ways to understanding the technical success to the internet. So based on 4 different dimensions, there's the scalability, there's the flexibility, there's adaptability, and of course the resilience. So during today's session, we like to provoke a conversation about how this study can be interpreted through the different lens from the different angles. So we have people all over from the world, from Geneva, from Amsterdam, from Singapore, and I'm here based in Taiwan, and the Vikram is in Bangladesh. So we're gonna look from the ISOC, the internet way of networking. We're gonna look at the new IP. We're gonna look at the DNS for EU. My very first speaker is Michael Kander from the Analysis Mason. He's a senior advisor. I'm very glad to have him because he's the first author for this internet study. Over the years, he has very strong focus on the internet related initiatives. He helped to advise across the globe on the internet policy, the different strategies, and he has very extensive knowledge on all this and also the future developments. So because he's the author, and I'm very welcome him to talk about the internet study if you haven't been able to have the time to view that. And I'd like to welcome Michael and giving his firsthand on his thoughts and carry out the studies. So it's all over to you, Michael.
Good morning. Good morning here in Geneva. Good afternoon to all of you. Let me just pull up the presentation. And here we go. So thank you very much for this opportunity. It's a pleasure to talk about this report. And I'm here also with a colleague, Amin Falbein, who worked on this report as well, and he'll be available also if there's any questions coming up. So the basic purpose of the report was that there have been over the years many questions about the suitability of the internet, whether it's fit for purpose, whether it can continue to expand, whether it might collapse under all the pressure of the usage. And so APNIC and LACNIC commissioned this study on the internet's technical success factors to answer the question and look at things in a very objective way to see whether the internet is indeed fit for purpose. And as a spoiler, we conclude yes, and looking a little into the future also as to how it can adapt and evolve. And there's a mini website that goes through this that we can put into the chat. And there's also, of course, the PDF report that's a little longer that shows all the data and how we come up with all the conclusions that we made. So as Joyce said, there's 4 dimensions of success that we identified in this little diagram. The internet has successfully scaled to all the increased demand from new users and usage. It's been flexible to new technologies. It's adapted to new applications, and the whole has been resilient to shocks and changes. And these 4 really explain how the internet transformed from a research network based in the US that was mainly used for text over very slow modems to the global network, multi-purpose, general purpose network that can be used for multimedia real-time applications like this one, and it's obviously been so valuable during the restrictions of the pandemic over very high and accessible over high speed, fixed and now mobile applications. And so we think these 4 things help explain how it was able to shift and how, from the origins to what it is now, and how it will continue to evolve in the future. The success really emerged, these 4 dimensions of success really emerged from decisions taken by the founders of the internet that we call the guiding ideals that also led to some key design principles. These guiding ideals were openness, that the internet has been very open to anyone that seeks to help develop standards. The standards themselves are open to anyone to use and adopt, and any network or anyone can join the internet and help it evolve and grow. It's based on simplicity, that there's some simple protocols that are used as building blocks to build up the internet that makes it very easy to evolve because one piece can change while others remain constant. And it's decentralized. There's no one that owns, operates, or controls the internet. All of us have a role, and we talked a lot about the operational principles of organizations such as ICANN, APNIC, LACNIC, ISOC, and others have all taken this role in helping to keep it evolving and growing. These 3 guiding ideals have then been built into design principles. For instance, simplicity is one of the factors behind the layering that separates the networks from the applications. Openness has helped lead to that the internet is the network of networks, that each network can act independently from the other networks and join and grow. And decentralization has also led to the end-to-end principle, where intelligence is sitting at the ends of the network, the edges, rather than within the core. And these 3 design principles led to then these dimensions of success. So a quick diagram looking at these 3 design principles. Layering, as I said, the internet protocol sits between the applications and the networks. Sometimes there's the hourglass diagram with applications at the top, networks at the bottom, and the waist is the internet protocol. And that then leads to the end-to-end principle, where, as I said, the intelligence is sitting at the ends, at the edges of the network, in our devices and in our networks. And this allows anyone to create and install and use an application without needing to change the networks in the middle. And that is what makes it so adaptable. One of the dimensions of success is adaptability, because anyone can create, install, and use an application at the edges. And then the network of networks. Each network is independent. New networks can be deployed as long as they use the same internet protocols. And that's what's made it so flexible, that new networks, whether they're mobile, satellite, and others, can join, enter with new technologies and help grow the internet. And these principles also make it so scalable, because the way that the different pieces can grow and evolve in a decentralized fashion, and made it very resilient. If one network goes down, for instance, the internet can route around it and continue to operate. So finally, looking forward, the internet, of course, has to keep evolving to meet changing demands. The internet faces a number of challenges. So we listed 3 here that we talk about throughout the report: the security, quality of service, and that there's been some delays in adopting new protocols, most notably, of course, IPv6. But many of these challenges are being addressed through incremental changes and new protocols that are slowly being adopted. Sometimes more radical proposals are made for completely new network architectures, such as the new IP proposal that we'll hear about in a few moments. And in assessing all of these evolutions or revolutions in the internet, it's important to look at what has driven the success and be careful with any changes that break with these guiding ideals that we talked about and the resulting design principles. And so we conclude that a fundamental change to the internet is difficult in practice, may have unwanted side effects, and may not be needed given those dimensions of success and how they'll continue to evolve and grow as the internet changes and responds to new needs. So with that, I will turn over and look forward to any questions that you have later on. Let me stop sharing.
Thank you, Michael. I think it's a wonderful intro to the internet study. And we do have the Q&A session after the speakers speak. So, and I also encourage the attendees, please either type the questions in the chat room, and we will be able to answer them all together later. So as Michael has mentioned, that it's really, from the earlier days, the guiding ideas on the openness, the simplicity, and the decentralizations. I think it's wonderful. So we're going to be, with that, to make the internet so scalable, I'm going to bring the Adrian Wim from ISOC. He's a senior manager on the policy and advocacy. And he has been focused on issues of openness, connectivities, and trustworthiness and security. And he's been leading a lot of the community networking project. So we're going to be having him, Andrea, you're going to be sharing on the ISOC's internet way of networking. I think this is something really wonderful. And I'm all ears to hear from the openness and the layering, the network of network on the design principles, and tell us more and on the scalability. Andrea, thank you.
Thank you, Joy. Let me try and share my screen first. Okay, so I want to start off by thanking the Cooperation SIG and APNIC for getting us, the Internet Society and many of our friends and partners together today. It's a great pleasure meeting all of you. And I want to jump right to it. So as Joy and Michael said just now, what we did last year is a project called the Internet Way of Networking. Essentially, this is about finding out what makes the internet so valuable, so successful. So you can see the similarities with what Michael just talked about. We believe articulating the features will help us know what to protect and how to ensure a healthy evolution of the internet, so that our future generations can continue to benefit from this technology that is changing all our lives. So, and after a lot of research and study, we came up with these 5 critical properties of the internet. And these are critical properties because of the benefits they bring. They may seem technical, but I'll go through them briefly one by one so that you get what we mean. Let's start with the top. Accessible infrastructure with a common protocol. Essentially, it means that the network is open to anyone who wants to participate in it, no matter if you're a consumer, if you're an information provider, or an infrastructure builder. There is no central authority dictating who, how, and where connections are made, so that networks can grow organically to support the needs of the users. So when this happens on a global scale, what we have is a global network of networks. It's an internet. Excuse me. So let's move on to the second one. So on the first one, you can see, it's really similar to openness, one of the guiding ideals that Michael mentioned. Moving on to the second one, open architecture of interoperable and reusable building blocks. It is about the fact that the technology building blocks are assembled in a layered fashion. They work together to provide services to applications and end users. Each building block delivers a specific function, like supporting different network types, ensuring reliable transport or security, or providing name resolution, right? So anyone can add innovation at any point. And internet users can adopt or not, right? Those building blocks that bring value without re-engineering the entire network. So that's the power of the network. Again, this corresponds to what Michael said just now about the layering. So I won't go through all of them, I think, but let's go through the third one too. Decentralized management and a distributed routing system. This is about the fact that each of the networks, they make independent decisions on how to route traffic to its neighbors based on its own needs and local requirements. There is no central direction or a controller dictating how and where connections must be made. The benefit is that networks make their own decisions so that they can grow organically, driven by local interests. But the other 2 critical properties are, common global identifiers, like IP, and the 5th one, technology neutral general purpose network, which I won't go into because of time today, but I'll move on. We also launched something new late last year. These are called the enablers for an open, globally connected, secure, and trustworthy internet. Essentially, how do we get to an internet that is good for everyone? So I think a lot of you here, we share a common set of aspirations for the internet, and we want these 4 goals. We want it to be open, globally connected, secure, and trustworthy. So the question is, how do we achieve these goals? And this is exactly what this tool sets out to do. By viewing proposed changes in policies, technologies, and applications in relation to these goals and enablers, we can understand whether we are on track for a thriving internet or straying from our targets. So the enablers, so there are the goals, and the enablers break them down into more specific measures, right? And so they help simplify the task of analyzing the potential effects of proposed changes, and in consequence, how it may affect the goals. I'll give you an example here. So a secure internet requires that the internet support both data confidentiality and data integrity, as you can see under secure. If either is missing, the security of the internet is undermined. And since the enablers, not the goals or the tools for analysis of proposals. They are the focus of this framework here. But I won't go into this too much. I will just say that, have we achieved the goals? Certainly not. Are we going to? Maybe, right? And maybe not. And we may never reach a point where we can say that the internet has now reached these 4 goals. But what we can do now, since we know what makes the internet so valuable and useful, is to move together in a direction that makes the internet more open, more connected, more secure, and more trustworthy for everyone. So we believe the internet can continue to evolve to address these issues as it has been doing for many years, like Michael just said. But the condition is that we have to know what to protect. And that's why we think before authorities or business leaders make decisions that change how the internet works, they should examine the potential impacts, just like you would do before you build a new airport or a bridge. A similar thinking should apply to the internet as well, because it's a real ecosystem. And it's something we hope more policymakers will think about when they make relevant decisions. That's it. Thank you. Looking forward to any questions.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much, Adrian. I think it's a great presentation. Yes, the goal that we are using internet as a commodity today, that we're looking for open, secure, globally connected, and of course trustworthy internet. And it sounds easy, but from today's keynote earlier, we know that it's very difficult to operate internet, in a very easy way. So with that, I'm going to turn to our third speaker, Carolina. Carolina is actually waking up, I appreciate very much, in the middle of the night. She's from Argentina currently, and she is affiliated to the Trenton House as the academic associate. So she's an independent researcher. She has specialized in the technology and internet governance, and she has been focused on the comparatively regulatory approach in Latin America, the US, and Europe. So Carolina is also the co-author of the book chapter entitled The Technical Standards and Human Rights, the Case of New IP. The topic of the new IP is really what we're going to talk about. So we're going to see what Carolina is going to be sharing with us on the new IP in the context of internet study, especially in the flexibility and adaptability for the 2 dimensions. So the floor is yours, Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy and Bikram, for the invite. It is a great pleasure to join you all for this conversation today. I'll just start off by saying just a quick word. I am indeed affiliated to Chatham House, but the remarks I'll be sharing today will be in my personal capacity. So having said that, I think I'll start off by saying a few quick words about my background and research to contextualize my intervention. As Joy said, I specialize in internet and technology governance, and have been conducting research on standardization processes, particularly around internet standards. And my most recent work, again, as Joy just mentioned, focused on studying the emergence of the new IP proposal that was put forth for consideration at ITU, and how proposals for standardizing, what we could call the building blocks of new IP have continued to emerge across various standards development organizations. For those of you perhaps unfamiliar with the proposal, I'll just mention that new IP essentially sought to introduce an alternative networking architecture to that which is currently used in the internet. So in that vein, I think the report that we are discussing today, commissioned by APNIC and LACNIC, is bringing a lot of value at a very important time. I think it was very refreshing to have a report that calls us to have a conversation not only about the shortcomings or present challenges facing the internet, which definitely still need addressing, but also about, what has made the internet successful, and sort of not taking that success for granted. In particular, I would say for me as a researcher and as a member of the internet community, I think, the report has sort of provided me with a framework to revisit what factors have made the internet what it is, what are the features that we want to uphold, and sort of as the opposite side of that, when we're studying and embedding proposals for internet standards, asking ourselves, whether a proposal is in line with what the internet stands for, whether a proposal is seeking to do something that is non-internet-like, and what proposals might bend some of the design principles, but still remain acceptable in that they don't sort of, throw off what the internet has managed to accomplish to date. And I think, when studying new IP, sort of the entire framework really proposed by the study, the guiding ideals, the design principles, and success factors have been very useful for me to map out how new IP would be different from the internet as we know it today. And I think generally, the report can be a very useful guide for the technical community engaging at the level of standard development organizations, and even country delegations engaging at the level of ITU. So really to sort of illustrate, perhaps, I can use new IP as an example. We essentially had a proposal for standardizing an alternative networking model that offered similar functionalities to that of the internet, such as connecting devices, sharing information and resources across networks, and so forth. But when you look at the specifics of the proposal, one of the primary things that new IP proposed to do that is very non-internet-like is violating the independence of internet layers. So essentially embedding information from the application layer, which I think we can all agree is sort of inherently political, into the network layer, right? So you can say, okay, that would render the network layer a lot more political. Having packet headers reveal information other than where the packet is headed can render the network layer a locus of control. This affects to the end-to-end principle and so forth. So that sort of package really is not it's non-internet-like. In another way, I think is useful to apply the framework set forth in the report is by asking ourselves why and how the internet needs to evolve. So say, taking the success factors of flexibility and adaptability, which I've been asked to reflect upon, instead of continuing on with the example of new IP, you see that proponents of this alternative networking model justified its introduction based on the claim that new IP could more effectively connect diverse types of networks, such as, I don't know, satellite and IoT networks, and that the internet, would not be fit for purpose to support future applications, that will require essentially better than best effort delivery. So things like high throughput, lower bounded latency, and so forth. And when you look at the success factors in the report, you actually see that the internet is indeed a network of networks, and that the one aspect that sets it sort of apart is precisely the flexibility to connect networks that use different network technologies. You also see that the internet has been able to adapt to new and emerging applications over the years. That you have, say, the IETF's deterministic networking group working to deliver solutions to ensure interoperability on the one hand, while addressing network requirements for higher quality of service and so forth. So really, any sort of new internet standard or protocol should prove that they're truly needed, and that they can offer concrete improvements to the internet that today has proven to be widely flexible, adaptable, resilient, and scalable. I just want to say that, this does not mean that we should not innovate, that we should not engage with certain proposals. But, what it means is that, what we should do is, consider what values, what principles, and what sort of, outcomes or results we want to uphold and we want to sort of carry through, and having a clear sense of, what is internet like and what is non-internet like. I did have some remarks about, what this entails for standardization processes, sort of more broadly, perhaps transcending the specific example of new IP, but maybe, for sake of time, I'll save those for the discussion and concluding remarks, Joy.
Okay, thank you very much, Carolina. I think it's wonderful insight from your angle. Flexibility and adaptability. Those are easy words to say, but in order to do that, there's a lot that needs to be done. And just looking at the society today, that we have a lot of initiatives and continue to support the new applications on internet. And talking about that, there's a lot that needs to be done. And the successful factors that we've been talking about is never easy to accomplish, and it just doesn't come natural. So with that, I'm going to turn to Chris. Chris Brackage is from the RIP NCC, and a very successful organization. And Chris has been there since 2006, and he's now the advisor to the managing director. And he's actually coming from Amsterdam, so I really appreciate you waking up in the middle of the night and sharing your insight with us. And I think you have a lot of the focus on the global strategy engagement. But today we're going to be looking at the DNS for EU and on the resilience under internet successful study. So thank you, Chris.
Okay.
Please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Joy and Bikram, for inviting me to be here. Not actually, it's about 8:30 in the morning, so it's not too bad. Yeah, but yeah, no, I think this is a really interesting session to be taking part in, and really timely. And I think especially the report that Michael and his colleagues pulled together is really timely and really useful in the work that we're doing. And I also want to note, I think sort of building on that work that Michael's done, it's what we're seeing now from the Internet Society with their Internet Impact Assessment Toolkit is also another really interesting example of how that can be, that sort of principle, that sort of framework can be applied. And the new IP situation that Carolina was talking about has been a really interesting example of the technical community coming together to really communicate those principles and those fundamental ideas about the internet's success in a way that, well, so far has successfully held the day in terms of that argument. So what I'm here to talk about is DNS for EU. And so you may remember the EU from such past far-reaching legislation as the GDPR. That's had a very significant impact. I'm going to share a couple of slides here, which are from an open house that the RIPE NCC did earlier this year. So yeah, DNS for EU. And I'm going to race through these a little bit because I've probably got more information here than we need for this, but you'll have the slides if you want to go back. Following on from GDPR, following on from, there was a period where about 12 months ago, the EU came out with a number of really significant internet-related policy proposals. So you had the Digital Services Act, the Digital Single Market Act, the NIS2, which is Network Information Security. Part of that was they put out an EU cybersecurity strategy for the digital decade. And in that, they mentioned this DNS for EU initiative. And basically, it's the idea of the European Commission would be to contribute to secure internet connectivity by supporting the development of a public European DNS resolver. Okay, fast forward about 12 months, there was a lot of sort of people wondering what that means, what's going on. 12th of January this year, the European Commission released a tender document to say, okay, we're moving forward with this. There is money on the table. We want to hear from anyone who wants to put this together for us and operate this European Public DNS Resolver. There's a link there if you want to see the whole tender document. It's quite detailed, QR code as well. The objectives that they put out in this, it's aiming to address consolidation of DNS resolution in the hands of a few companies. We're starting to see that with some of the big public resolvers operated by Google or Cloudflare. It's seen the lack of significant EU investment as hampering its ability to detect and filter local cyber threats. So they want something that can really target those threats in a local European sense. And then also the concern about processing of DNS data and the impact on privacy and data protection that might have. Getting a little bit more specific, they sort of lay out some of the requirements that would be there for anyone operating this. So it needs to have very high level of resilience, global EU specific cybersecurity protection, data protection, privacy according to all EU rules. Needs to ensure the DNS resolution data is processed in Europe. It adheres to the latest internet security and privacy standards. Should be widely discoverable and easy to configure by end users, so really making it accessible to all. And then interestingly, should offer additional services such as free parental control or premium services for enhanced performance. Yeah. Additionally, the proposal needs to comply with both EU regulation and applicable national regulations of its member states. That's interesting. That makes things a little complicated, in particular in relation to data protection and privacy, and in relation to lawful filtering. So what URLs are actually filtered out of the route being served by this public resolver. And then also a priority to a governance or federated structure. So they're not looking for just like a Deutsche Telekom or Telecom Italia to come in and set up this service. They're looking for a more broad coalition, let's say, to do this. Key details, very quickly through here, there's 14 million euros on the table, only related to development, construction and deployment, so not ongoing costs. The deadline was 22nd of March, so a very short tender deadline. And the applicants have to be legal entities and based in EU member states. So that's the background. Now we had a question, an open house, as I said, discussion with our community. I think we had about 140 people on there. So this has been a topic of a lot of interest to the European community. And we had some open questions. I mean, the questions were, is this project useful, necessary? Does the community care who takes this on? Will it have any impact on current DNS operations in Europe or beyond? Are the requirements appropriate, realistic, comprehensive? These people know what they're talking about when they put out this tender. And are there risks here? And that's the real question. Are there risks for users, for operators, for the DNS itself? And then from the RIPE NCC's perspective, we actually had the question, do you want us to be involved here? Do you want us to actually be part of a federated coalition bidding for this? And so, yeah, it was a really good discussion, and I'd encourage you, if you're interested in this, to go and watch it. It's all archived on the RIPE NCC website. But yeah, what we heard is there are concerns about possible obligations or requirements on network operators. And this is where we come back to that question of resilience and what this might mean. It's also there in the third bullet point, so I'm going to jump the second one. Technical concerns regarding centralization or consolidation of DNS resolution services. So this is a public DNS resolver. Anyone can run a public DNS resolver. We're seeing, as I said, Google, Cloudflare, ISPs, run them for their customers. This is not a restricted or difficult thing to do. It is a cost center. You're not getting a lot of money from it, and in an obvious way, and it is going to cost you money. So there is a question as to why are you making that investment. But it's fine. If the EU wants to set this up, go for it. The question comes back then, and this is to the second bullet point, this is government intervention. This is a government stepping in here. So what does that mean? Is the government going to care who is using their service, or more importantly, who is not using their service? Are they going to say to internet network operators in their jurisdiction, or the EU, you need to use this particular public resolver because it's the public resolver that represents the lawful filtering and cybersecurity considerations of this jurisdiction? At that point, you're entering problematic territory. You're moving away from the decentralized model. You're moving away from a distributed system that mitigates risk in that sense to a single system, which could be a single point of failure, although that may be what the federated model is trying to mitigate. There is obviously a lot of interest from our community in who is awarded this tender. We'll see how that progresses. There wasn't a strong desire for the RIPE NCC to take an active role. From my position, I think that's probably a good thing, and I think we're happy not to be stepping into that role because it's going to be a very political and very legally fraught area, I suspect. There is a link there which has a little bit more information about the discussion in that open house if you want to go through that quickly. And I don't think I need to have questions. So yeah, thank you. I'm happy to discuss further and to talk about how this links in with what my colleagues have been speaking about.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Chris. I do see some questions from the chat room, but please, the moderator, if you can help me with any additional one. I pick up the last one. In addition, Jeff Houston has taken on the DNS for EU project, namely, what role does the public sector have in maintaining the DNS? Are there any other questions, maybe from the earlier chat room? So Chris, do you want to maybe take on that and then we can pick up the rest of it? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, Jeff's take on that was obviously very interesting. I always like reading Jeff's perspectives on these things. And I mean, it comes at an interesting time. I think that the DNS for EU project or proposal is one of those sort of interesting, slightly more open questions as to, okay, is this something that is going to affect the resilience of the internet, or is this legitimate government sort of taking a role, getting involved? And I mean, in that sense, it's a comparison, and I won't go into too much detail, but I mean, our other big discussion at the RIPE NCC with the European Union institutions over the last year has been about that NIS2 proposal, the Network Information Security proposal, where they were seeking to bring the root server operators into scope of that legislation and say, these are critical entities, they're going to be regulated. Now that's a big problem. That's a much bigger problem than wading into public resolvers, because then you're actually saying, okay, this global multi-stakeholder governance system, no, we're going to bring that under our EU jurisdiction. And so that's something we've been having very involved discussions with the EU about, and hopefully we're seeing that the tide turn there as well, and some recognition of the importance of not extending jurisdiction across those kind of multi-stakeholder models.
Definitely. Before we see any other questions from the chat room, I just want to kind of like turn to Michael, because I remember reading your internet study, The Successful Factor. You had a section on the future outlook. We haven't been able to get into that. I think we look at the 4 different dimensions. Those are very insightful from the speakers. Perhaps you want to give us a few words on the future outlook and the impact, and thank you.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think that, you know, we assessed, I mean, look, we looked at how the internet was able to adapt to all of the new usage and reliance on it during COVID-19, but there's going to continue to be proposals such as the new IP proposal. And so we think that, you know, actually in the way that Carolina laid out, that any new proposals for how it should adapt and evolve or be replaced in some cases should be assessed using the framework, whether a new proposal violates some of the guiding ideals and how that will translate into the design principles and eventually dimensions of success. And we looked at also a few specific cases of potential fragmentation based on some government actions, or the changing role of some of the internet companies, and I'll leave you to look at the study for that. But we did look at a few potential evolutions that could violate some of the principles.
Okay, wonderful. So thank you, Michael. I want to turn to Adrian, Carolina, and Chris for your final remarks and from the session. And I do want to save a few minutes for our wonderful co-chair Bikram to give a summary overall. So Adrian, why don't you go first?
Sure. Thanks, Joy. I just want to end by saying the internet study that Michael and his team and Pablo have done is excellent, and that it really complements with the internet way of networking and the internet impact assessment toolkit that that arises from the IWN. So I personally have learned a lot reading this, so thank you. But so there are a lot of similarities and there are some differences as well. Perhaps I could mention the difference here, and it is simply the approach. From the beginning, IWN was designed to engage people and to help people understand what makes the internet valuable. And that's why we position as a tool and not really just a report. But there is value in a report, of course. And that is why we think, we internally we've discussed this, and we think, we could have benefited a lot from this report when we were writing the IWN as well. And when we have the two at our hands, the result is a really compelling narrative when we talk about the internet. And so thank you for your work. Thank you for involving us. Yeah, back to you.
Okay, wonderful. Carolina?
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, for final remarks, I guess I'll say that I think the internet is evolving, and it is evolving fast. So we're likely to see a wealth of standards proposals come up. And what I think it's important is to ensure that we continue to discuss internet standards in the proper forum. I'd like to sort of point that out. And that we also continue to stand up for the multi-stakeholder model, and really sort of the internet community behind that model that has been able to advance internet growth and make the internet what it is today. More importantly, I did want to sort of reemphasize that I think we need to engage with all proposals and sort of get to the nitty-gritty of their technical merits. And here again, I think the report offers some pointers about what we should sort of look for in internet standards proposals. And I'll just mention very quickly some 4 points that I normally have in mind. First, ensuring that standards are open, meaning that standards are made available to the general public and developed and maintained through collaborative and sort of consensus-driven processes. Second, ensuring resilience, so that there be multiple implementations of any given technology. I think it's important. Ensuring interoperability, of course. Perhaps I should have started off with that. So mechanisms of sort of coexistence, which I think draw precisely on the idea of flexibility and adaptability as success factors. And lastly, ensuring that any protocol abides by an open governance model. And here, I think that more, can be done at the level of standard development organizations, at the level of organizations in charge of policy development processes to lower entry barriers. Internet governance should remain open, multi-stakeholder, and essentially refrain from being shaped exclusively at multilateral fora. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolina. So Chris, due to the time, I'm going to ask you to maybe a quick last remark, and then Bikram can summarize for all of us. Thank you.
I'll be very brief. Thank you, Joanne. I'm basically just echoing what the others have said here. I think this report is a really useful and timely one because there is a huge amount of proposals, regulations, etc., coming in, And I mean, I'm out there talking to people about it, but so is potentially everyone in this room. I think everyone is in their countries. So this report really, I think, is useful in helping to give that framework and that idea of what is it that we can bring to the discussion, what is it that we can argue for, and how can we convince public policymakers and others that this is the right way to go. So thank you, Michael, and thanks APNIC and LACNIC for the initiative here.
Wonderful, Chris. And Bikram, we're going to try to do a quick summary because we want to make sure that all the people can be able to do the session pool and, and before the break. Thank you.
The openness is key to the success of the internet. Ben Cerf, internet pioneer, one of the father of internet. Thank you very much, Joy. Thank you to all the speakers and everyone who joining here. And welcome to the virtual APRICOT 2022, APNIC 53 Cooperation SIG session on the study of the internet technical success factor of the internet based in 4 dimensions: scalability, flexibility, adaptability, and resilience. Some of the foundations for this success were built into the internet architecture from the beginning, while others have emerged as the internet has evolved. The success of the internet can be measured by the growth in access, usage, and application within and across regions around the world. The internet scalability is a rapid growth of the internet, a user base from an estimated 2.6 million in 1990 to 4 billion, more than half of the global population within 30 years. It's still not over, obviously. The internet is still growing, continue globally, and during pandemic, we use the COVID example. The underlying protocol did not break down and the internet did stop working. It's growing day by day. The adoption and use have been fueled by innovation and investment in new technology, which have enabled a change in the context and services with the higher bandwidth and lower latency. This evolution demonstrates the success of the internet in key area: scalability and reach, flexibility, access network, convergence of services, adaptability to new application, and resiliency in face of shocks and changes. As mentioned by Chris, DNS for EU shall offer a high level of resiliency and shall be widely discovered and easy to configure by end user on their equipment and software. The internet has successfully scaled to the increased demand from new users and users. It has been flexible to new underlying network technologies and evident of how the internet is scalable, flexible, adaptable, and resilient. And as discussed, the internet properties of the internet that underlie these 4 dimensions of success. To achieve this important of success factor, mainly 3 technical principle that plays vital role as enable for the success of the internet. That is first layering, and second network of network, and third is end-to-end principle as mentioned by Michael. The current internet is built on the fundamental guiding ideals of openness, trustworthiness, and common identifiers, security, simplicity, and decentralized as shared by Adin Nguyen. As Corelina shared regarding highlighting new IP address, new proposal, new the internet standardization, and the new IP address is different from the internet. So the success of the internet has turned into the world's most important system for connecting people and sharing information. The design principle of the internet make it simple and for anyone to connect a system to the internet and use it to distribute it any type of content. The internet continue to develop and maintaining in success as a concluding note here. Thank you. Thank you. Over to Joy.
Wonderful, Bikram. You always does great final conclusions, and we do have the session pool, and please participate in our pool. And I think we did a great session, and thank you very much, Michael, for bringing us the internet studies. And I wish that everybody doing well. We're going to be closing the session very soon, but with a 15 minutes break. And also that I'd like to welcome everyone to join the APRICOT 2022, the social event later. I think they always does wonderful social event, and I hope everybody can join. And thank you very much, and sorry about this 4 minutes overtime on our session, but thank you very much. That closes our session officially. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please join the quiz.
Thank
It
you.
starts now. There's no break.
Yeah.
Yeah.